Oh my God! Specimen Z isn't Carter's body. What is it? Specimen Z is a cure for cancer.
In today's video, we've got a thrilling plot. Brian and Stewie uncover a dark secret. Carter's pharmaceutical company is hiding the cure for cancer to make a profit. Together, they plan to expose this truth to the world. Get ready for a story full of twists and suspense. The episode begins with Peter, Quagmire, Joe, and Brian watching a baseball game. Joe comments that they have the best seats in the stadium to catch home run balls, and Peter agrees, saying it would be awesome, but the only souvenir he ever caught was from a stock car race. In the next scene, the whole stadium goes wild, and Peter asks if he missed something. Quagmire points out, saying it's just a crazy guy running onto the field. Next, Peter and Quagmire are in the bathroom line. Quagmire mentions there are 2 empty spots at the urinal.
Hi.
Hey.
Damn it, you already started. If I don't start peeing soon, it's gonna be weird. He'll be all done and I'll still be here.
All set?
Yep.
I know you didn't go.
I'm gonna go pee in a stairwell.
Back at the stadium, Joe warns his friends that the ball is coming their way. Quagmire shouts that he'll catch it. They dive to the ground, but Brian appears holding the ball and says it's his. Quagmire gets angry, saying the ball was coming towards him and it was his. Quagmire sees himself on live camera and quickly runs out of the stadium screaming. At night, at the bar, Quagmire is with his friends. When it's time for the daily sports report, the journalist comments on the game and the baseball score, but what everyone is talking about is the fan who lost his wig during the game. The hilarious video has 2 million views online. Quagmire says he's become a laughingstock. His friends say it's not so bad. Brian asks if he's never thought about embracing the baldness. Peter says many celebrities have lost hair with dignity and mentions some famous ones. Joe says he'll be happy being who he is. Peter says nobody will tease him, and if someone does, just ignore them, like he does. The next morning, Chris tells his dad there's a weird bald guy outside. Peter, unsurprised, says it's Quagmire and he'll talk to him, adding that he looks different now that he's bald. Peter asks what Quagmire is doing. Quagmire is sitting in Peter's backyard with a speed gun and says he's warning fast drivers that it's a family neighborhood, not a racetrack. Peter asks why he doesn't do it in front of his own house, and he replies it's because of his ham radio, which interferes with the street radar.
Quagmire, what the hell are you doing?
I'm just letting all these hot rodders know that this is a neighborhood, not a speedway track.
Later, the friends show up at the bar, and Joe quickly spots Quagmire. Peter comments he's been acting strange lately, and Joe offers a beer, but Quagmire declines, saying he's going bird watching later and doesn't want to be drunk for that. Peter says they hate him now, and Joe comments that he used to be fun. Peter expresses he wants his friend back, and Quagmire replies he won't put the wig back on, so he doesn't know what to do.
You could get a hair transplant.
Oh yeah, like one of those guys pretending to get out of the pool? That looks all right.
Yeah, come on, Quagmire, get the hair transplant.
At the hospital, Quagmire and his friends are waiting for the doctor, but he's called away shortly after. While Brian and Peter are reading magazines, Joe greets everyone, surprising Peter. Brian heads out, saying he's going to the bathroom, but on the way, he overhears one of the doctors in the hallway telling Mr. Carter that he only has a few weeks left to live. Quagmire's hair transplant is done, and the doctor celebrates by firing a shot into the air as he exits the room. The friends approve and say it looks great. Back at home that night, Brian goes to Stewie's room because he's worried about what he heard. Brian mentions he heard something he didn't want to. He tells Stewie he overheard a doctor telling Carter he only has 2 weeks left to live. Stewie is impressed and asks if he's sure. Brian says he saw it with his own eyes. Stewie says they need to check it out and opens his laptop, seeing Carter who appears very sick. Brian asks how they're seeing that, and Stewie says he hid a camera in his room.
Wait, how are we seeing this?
Oh, I've got a nanny cam hidden inside his house.
And the worst part is, I don't think Lois even knows he's sick.
Afterward, Brian goes to Lois, who's in the kitchen, and says he needs to tell her something that might be hard to hear. Lois asks what it is, and Brian replies that her father is not well. She's shocked, and Stewie shows up to take a picture. She asks what he's talking about, and he tells her about the problem he was having and what he heard at the hospital. He says he's sorry, but he's running late for the 10 to 5 session, and it's only a minute left, so he needs to go like now. The scene cuts to the whole family in the car. They arrive at Lois's parents' house, and Barbara Pewterschmidt answers the door. Lois says she's worried and trying to reach her and asks if her father is okay and where he is. Barbara says he's fine, but now is not a good time as he's very busy. Lois interrupts and says she knows there's something as she goes in and goes to Carter's room. Carter appears completely fine, looking much better than he did in the hospital. Lois says he's fine and asks Brian how he could have made them so upset, as Brian had said he was dying. She's angry when it's just Stewie and Brian left after everyone leaves. Brian angrily asks Stewie how he was on his deathbed last night and now looks better than ever. Stewie replies that they say laughter is the best medicine and maybe he went to a comedy club.
Well, they say laughter is the best medicine. Maybe he went to a comedy club or something.
Back at home, Brian appears again in front of Stewie and says he has a theory about Carter. He tries to explain to Stewie that Carter is lying and that the sick one they saw was swapped with an imposter. Stewie asks what he suggests, and Brian says they should follow him to see if it's really Carter. Stewie agrees but says he'd have to be back home by 7 because of what he witnessed. Stewie and Brian are keeping watch on Carter's mansion, and Brian says they just need to wait for him to slip up since the imposter needs to do everything the normal Carter would do. Stewie sees him leaving through binoculars, and Brian drives, following the car. They try to follow Carter's steps, who goes to a coffee shop, and Brian says that's not what he would do, as he thinks they're too fancy and pretentious. At Mr. Carter's industry, Brian and Stewie follow him into the elevator and hide to eavesdrop on the conversation. Carter and one of his employees are talking, and he says his appearance is much better than the last time he saw him. Mr. Carter says no one will ever see him like that again, and emphasizes the importance of not revealing their secret to the public. Stewie and Brian think it's really an imposter, and the corpse is on the 12th floor. Mr. Carter hears them and tries to talk to them but doesn't recognize them. Stewie and Brian go to the 12th floor and find the secret room, but it has a code, and they don't know the password.
Stewie, are you crazy? That's so loud. The guards will hear.
Don't worry about it, Brian.
Hey, what's going on down there?
Nothing.
All right.
When they enter the secret room, it looks like a pharmaceutical lab. While they search for a body, Stewie finds the room with the name Specimen Z. Entering it, they actually find the cure for cancer. Brian says Carter didn't die. He cured himself. Suddenly, Carter appears and says Brian invaded his lab. Brian asks if he discovered the cure. Carter says it wasn't him, but one of the scientists he hired, a Chinese. And Brian, annoyed, says he discovered the holy grail of modern medicine and asks why he keeps it a secret. Carter says it's because it makes much more money to treat the disease than to cure it. Brian says that's a crime and that he'll tell everyone. Carter doesn't bother and says no one will believe him. And then he asks the security to kick out Stewie and Brian, who are kicked out. Brian and Stewie appear in the car, still annoyed with the situation. Brian comments that he can't believe Carter would sacrifice millions of lives to protect the company's profits. Stewie jokes and shows the little souvenir he got on the way out. Brian is surprised and asks Stewie how he managed to do that. Stewie says it was easy because he grabbed it while the two of them were arguing. In the next scene, they arrive home and find Peter and Lois on the couch. Brian says he has something incredible to tell, but Peter shows off his new trick first. Carter barges into their house with 2 agents and holds Brian at gunpoint, taking the sample Stewie stole. Lois is shocked and asks her father what's going on between them. Brian tells Lois that her father has the cure for cancer but won't release it because it's not profitable, so they stole it. Lois asks if it's true, and he confirms, but he doesn't seem to care or be worried.
Big deal. I also took a dump today and didn't issue a press release.
Oh, that's interesting, because I did.
Good for Peter. It's about time the media covered something positive.
Lois says her father is the president of a billion-dollar company and only cares about money. She tries to appeal to him emotionally by asking if their nanny who raised him had cancer or any family members, and she asks him to do the right thing. He responds that he agrees and will do it for her. Carter says he'll make the announcement tomorrow, and Stewie is surprised because Carter is Lois' mom's dad. The next day, with everyone gathered in the living room, what's on the news is the big announcement from Pewterschmidt Laboratories. President Mr. Carter released a statement announcing a line of deodorants. Lois is irritated and can't believe the news ended without announcing the cancer cure. Brian says he lied to everyone. Lois calls her father and says she was waiting for the big announcement. He admits he lied and hangs up the phone.
Remember the one that's gonna benefit all mankind? The one you promised to make for me, your daughter?
I lied.
Well, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave your comment. Until the next videos.